I am Dr. Subhash Ranadhir, Department of English, SSGM College, Kopargaon. It's my lecture on the background history of English literature, mainly from 1550 to 1798, to follow my last lecture on the same topic. It is, I want to continue that Elizabethan age, as I stated earlier, was rich with all aspects. Politically, it was at ease where there was no disturbance. After Queen Elizabeth took the reins of power, even the religious quarrels, the struggles, that they also came to an end because she resorted to the middle path. Both the Protestants and the Catholics that they set right accepted were both values. So the queen, in fact, English people love all the queens and kings, but the queen or the king that he becomes famous or not famous, but English people they love dynasty, the palace, king or queen. And in the time of the queen, everything was at ease. People were busy, no pauper was found, unemployed persons were not found, market was full, money was flowing towards England, and so it was reflected in literature. There happened to be the stalwarts like Spencer, Sidney, Shakespeare, Milton, Johnson, Dryden, Pope, and as I stated, they went, the history goes ahead, and we are, of course, taking only the survey till 1798. So, all the names I mentioned, just I mentioned, stand as the stalwarts. They contributed to history of English literature with their creative talents. Each stood for his great work. Though the interest sometimes were personal, however, the interests were both individual and national. National issues were upheld, and it is literature. Therefore, the personal issues also become the universal. What is the trait of literature? Maybe Spencer, maybe Sidney, or maybe Shakespeare, Milton, all they contributed, fabulously contributed to this stream, to English literature. The time was, of course, favorite, and people were living the life, of course, happy life. Spencer, Shakespeare, Sidney, or all the following poets, all they contributed with talents, and each stands distinct with his, of course, his, there was no chance for her, his works. He stood for particular work, or XYZ poet stood for his particular work. All of us we know Shakespeare, that Shakespeare, though, is recognized as a playwright, a dramatist, however, he is a lyrical poet too. He has made his world of sonnet, and the sonnets written by Shakespeare, they are with distinct identity. they are named after Shakespeare, that is Shakespearean sonnets. This age, Elizabethan age, dots with sonnets. Spenser, the one of the stalwarts of this time, his time is 1552 to 1599. He was a Londoner. He was brought up, educated in London. His association with Cambridge, he was educated. He started his literary career there itself, and all his sonnets he wrote, as they are called, Petrarchan sonnets. A sonnet is a genre that is written in 14 lines, divided into two sets, two parts, respectively containing 8 lines and 6 lines. The 8 lines, that is called octave, and the another, the 6th line, that piece is called sestet. And the rhyme scheme of Petrarchan sonnet is ABB AA BBA, and the sestet, that contains 6 lines, and that is called as it is called sestet. It is flexible. The rhyme scheme, we cannot, or there is no restriction for the rhyme scheme. So Spenser, that he stands for his sonnets, and his sonnets are known as Amoreti sonnets. Amorous, Amoreti are the words going together. The meaning is love songs, and here that is not song, but it is sonnet rather than song. And sonnet, as it shows the genre, sense of genre, so it's better to call that is sonnet. It is Amoreti sonnet. The idea of this sonnet is love song first, and that song, that piece of lyrical literary piece, that is devoted, that is dedicated to the beloved. As I told you earlier, that he was Londoner, he was educated in Cambridge, where he, in his personal life, met an Irish girl named Elizabeth Boyle. She was very beautiful girl. He loved her, and in the later course of time he married her. But before their marriage, as I mentioned, that Amoreti sonnet, that is sung, that is addressed to a girl, to a woman. Several times it is for an unattainable woman. Man, I mean male person, that he urges, he longs for any woman. It is natural, but there is least possibility. It rarely happens that a lover becomes wife, and it is taken for granted that if the woman is unattainable, he is a poet. Poet is a poet. Because the difference between poet and a common man is that a poet that can satisfy himself with his metrical composition what a common man cannot do. When a common man does not get what he wants, then what he does everybody knows. A common man goes mad and ultimately perhaps dies. It is not in case of a poet that he gets or he gives vent to his feeling, that is on the piece of paper with the help of pen, that he takes to piece of literature and he expresses all his feelings, or if he is not satisfied in his life, that he gets satisfaction from that writing. And this is the basic difference between a poet and a common man. Spencer, and not only Spencer, but it is also applicable in case of other poets. When he is addressing to that woman, he goes on writing poetry. That writing is for that woman, may be attainable or unattainable. If she is unattainable, he goes on composing that metrical composition, and he gets it, the matter is over. It happened in case of Spencer that the period after his love and before his marriage, that was their courting period, and he wrote so many sonnets, and all they were devoted, dedicated, they were sung in the name of that beautiful woman, that beautiful girl. Fairy Queen is one of the famous works, great work of Spencer, which the poet's fame chiefly rests. He is Spencer, he is famous for Fairy Queen. He stands for Fairy Queen. A poet, he has written so many small minor pieces of literature, but sometimes a poet, literary man, that he is known for some of his works or minimum one work that he stands for. The Fairy Queen is for Spencer, and Spencer that he stands for Fairy Queen. The original plan of the poem included 24 books, each of which was the recount the adventure and triumph of knight, which represented moral virtue. Spencer's purpose, as indicated in the letter to Raleigh, which introduces the poem, and we get the idea what he wrote and how he wrote. He stands for that long poem. It was Fairy Queen in that poem. She was none else, but she was his beloved Elizabeth. As if the fairy is dancing among the deities, deities of beauty, the nymphs. All of us, we know all these ideas are mythical ideas, and they are for muse, as if they are dancing around and she is among them, she stands among them. He glorifies her, he makes her great. But as far as the poem I am going to deal with, of course, it is a sonnet. That is one of the Amrati sonnet 15. A tradeful merchants that with weary toil. That was written in 1595. He wrote so many sonnets, and one of them is this sonnet, as it is learnt, he wrote not less than 90 amority sonnets. We can very well imagine that how mad he went for her. Fortunately, his will was fulfilled. He got what he wanted. And in the later course of time, when she became his wife, they married, she became his wife, and he was very happy as a man, and he was very satisfied person as a poet, because a poet, not his personal interest, but when gets some object, that he becomes a prodigal man with his words, and he lavishes on that object the words. He lavishes words, and we get nice pieces of literature. And we have not only English literature, but literature in the world with the best, choicest of words in literature, world literature, L capital. Spencer, that he had interest, or he upheld the interest, national interest, rather than the individual one. In fact, it is fact that when personal interest is put into literature, that does not remain individual, but it becomes universal, because literature is, or poetry is, universal. It does not remain fact, it does not remain individual, but it becomes of everybody. It becomes everybody's experience. Everybody finds it as his or her own experience in that literature poured by that poet. Therefore, the poet, that he disappears, and that experience, that piece of literature becomes piece for everybody. So, though these songs were sung by Spencer for his beloved, but when we read it, Spencer wrote in those days. Theme is love, love, or the values like love. They are universal as humanity, as universal as human being. Wherever there is human being and the temperament or the aspects of humanity, they never change. They are timeless and climeless. And so when we read that poem gives us the experience what he wrote. We can read and very well appreciate what he expressed regarding his beloved. The title of the poem is Amority 15. It is Amority 15. A tradeful merchants that with weary toil. He is speaking to the tradesmen, merchants,